Okay, it is 4:30 and I will call to order this December 4th, 2023 meeting of the Fitchburg Board of Public Works. All right, public appearances for non-agenda items. I don't believe we have any. So moving on, we'll go to the approval of minutes. Will anybody move approval of the November 10th meeting minutes?
I'll move approval.
All right,
I'll second.
moved by Dave and seconded by Don. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right, report from the department. We have with us in the room, Public Works Director, Mr. Tim Volker.
I'll start off with some staffing updates. Our environmental engineering technician started today, so we are officially fully staffed in the engineering side of Public Works.
I don't see cake.
Balloons, confetti, all that stuff. So that's quite the accomplishment. Hopefully it'll show up for day 2. Next up, some project updates. Our street resurfacing project, the last remaining city street was resurfaced last week. So all the streets as part of that project have been resurfaced. The sidewalk replacement project, all the sidewalk has been reconstructed and restoration will be taking place this week. And they're hoping to have that wrapped up by the end of the week. And then lastly, our Fitchburg Road reconstruction project, there'll be a public involvement meeting a week from today, December 11th, 2023 at 6 p.m. at the town of Verona. And the address is 7769 County Road, PD, Verona, Wisconsin. With that, does anyone have any questions?
Not with those projects, I just, on a different topic, and we can talk offline, is the BRT. I didn't get to attend the meeting that was occurring, but how's that gonna affect city streets and stuff if they go forward with it?
Ross, I can provide an update regarding that.
Oh, okay.
To the table.
Sure.
Yeah, move over to the big sheet table.
So I don't know if we've met, but I'm Ross Kaler, the transportation
Don
engineer.
Yankowski.
I've met everyone else here. But BRT, we're kind of going through a couple of different options internally with city staff, and then getting cost estimates from Metro Transit on the options. Basically, it will come down Fish Hatchery Road to at least McKee, and then we're
Well, Brendan really, right? The first intersection south of McKee, so you could make it a loop.
Right. It'll loop around. It'll come down Fish Hatchery Road, take a right on Brennan, take another right on Triverton Pike, and then right on McKee, and then back up Fish Hatchery Road. That's that configuration. And then there's also some options where we could bring it further down Fish Hatchery Road all the way to Civic Campus. But then there's also options with extending other bus routes to cover that section between basically McKee and Civic Campus. That would cost less in construction. And then the other big thing is we're trying to decide between center running and side running on
I was gonna ask.
Fish Hatchery Road.
When's it scheduled for?
Construction in 2027 or 2028, depending on when
really?
the federal government,
I figured it was a ways out there.
puts the grant money out there, so.
Hadn't they previously said they were hoping to open the north-south route in 27?
It would have opened in 28 either way.
Okay.
But it would just be like the start of construction year might shift 1 year, and then the opening year would also shift a year, I would assume, but.
Right.
just did fish hatchery, so does it kind of limit us to the outsides or?
So the center running, stations would not impact what we've just done on fish hatchery that much. There would be some minor reconstruction necessary. The stations are fairly wide. So basically we try to locate them in the wider sections of the median and they would fit there, pretty nicely. The major impact we would see is we'd be losing the combination bike bus lane on the right-hand lane. And then because of the width of the road, we would probably need to eliminate on-street biking altogether and limit biking to the path on the west side of Fish Hatchery.
Assuming we have to keep both car travel lanes, which seems, I've been, every time I meet with the VRT people, I say, hey, why are we going out of our way to not impact car traffic when we're offering additional mass transit that's supposed to be taking people out of their cars?
Good luck with that one.
And then parking, street parking or at,
No street, where are you talking about?
where would people park to jump on the BRT?
So if it comes all the way to Civic Campus, there's more options for stuff like a park and ride, but, there wouldn't be any additional parking at McKee. McKee is the end of a bus route right now. And there's no additional parking there besides street parking, so.
Thank you.
I guess I'll ask about McKee Farms Park just because there's so much going on there. It looks like the basketball court will probably get striped in the spring. The asphalt's laid down. And then the parking lot I see, it looks like it's complete as well with asphalt. So that will also get striped in the spring.
Striped in the spring.
Yep.
correct.
And then I guess it's not Public Works as much as it is parks, but the new exercise equipment is mostly installed. The grounds are still a mess, but is that planned on still finishing this fall or?
Yeah, Parks kind of took the lead on that, but I would assume the restoration would still happen this year for that.
Okay. Dave?
Tim, could you and Chad Brecklin talk? Pelletier fell down. They didn't pick up people's leaves like they're supposed to, and we made requests. They came back. Thought they finished the job, but I have a 1-block street or 2-block street in my neighborhood called Valley Forge, and they didn't come down Valley Forge and get there's 2 residents there that they didn't bother to come and get those, whereas they went around the neighborhood and got everyone else's. I don't know what the deal was. I don't want us to pay another $1,000 for them to come and get those, but that's on them for not swinging by and picking those up.
We can
Appreciate that we made them come out there again, but with those, my pickup truck isn't big enough to haul those down to the recycling site for the residents.
I was gonna ask if Jordan's pickup truck is big enough.
I don't think we have a city, maybe one of the dump trucks, but it's just disappointing. I guess that's all. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Anything else for Tim before we move on? All right, so we'll move into our agenda items. 5A, Resolution R21823. Will anyone move approval?
I will move approval of resolution R 218-23.
Here a second.
Second that.
So this is approving change order with AECom for Fitchburg TMDL Windslam model update. That's a lot of acronyms. Tim, can you tell us what's going on?
Yes, so the stormwater quality modeling was completed in 2014 found that the city of Fitchburg was not in compliance with TMDL total maximum daily load pollutant load reductions. Therefore, AECOM was authorized to complete an updated TMDL windslam model via resolution R-152-22. The current contract states that up to 60 stormwater best management practices are to be added to this model. However, an additional 115 BMPs have been identified as eligible to be included in the model. It's beneficial for the city to include these additional 115 BMPs as this will demonstrate greater pollutant load reductions, helping to show compliance with the TMDL requirements and reduce annual adaptive management costs. So we're looking to do a change order to increase AECOM's contract by $126,272. So currently in order to come up with this $126,000, there's $43,533 available in the current project. And then we would look to transfer $60,000 from CIP project number 4716, which is the bike roundabout repairs project, and then looking to transfer the remaining $22,739 from the Seminole Glen stormwater study project. With that, does anyone have any questions?
Dave does.
Dave?
Thank you, Bill. Tim, tell me more why we wouldn't have been in compliance. Paul is on the phone here. He was the architect of our stormwater utility, and I think we do a darn good job. If we're out of compliance, I don't know who is. To be honest with you, so give me a little more why we would have been out of compliance.
So I believe that the history with that was, so back in 2008, the city of Fitchburg completed the stormwater quality modeling efforts within the city's MS4 permitted boundary. At that time, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources concurred that the city was exceeding the required 20% total suspended solids removal requirement. Then in 2011, the Rock River TMDL was approved by the EPA with 3 TMDL reach sheds with pollutant loading limits within the city's MS4 permitted boundary. So that was the Lake Wingra, Nine Springs Creek, and Swan Creek. And then in 2014, when MSA completed the stormwater quality modeling for the Nine Springs Creek reach within that Rock River TMDL, the final TMDL modeling that MSA completed from the DNR, it became available and showed that the updated stormwater modeling found the city was not in compliance with the new TMDL reductions that were found at that time in 2014. So since that time, the city's been paying $105,000 to Yahara Winds every year for the not meeting that requirement. So by doing this modeling and showing we have additional BMPs, that $105,000 will be reduced on an annual basis. The amount is yet to be determined until we do this modeling to see how much of a reduction that will help the city.
And it sounds like,
Well, I'm still a little confused. I approved a second street sweeper. We're running a street sweeper steady. I'm not sure what. Throw me a bone here. What these best management practices, kind of flowery things. I'm not. We have stormwater basins everywhere. We keep our streets clean.
That's the thing. The model just has to be updated to reflect the stormwater basins. Everything that was constructed, both privately and publicly, weren't input into the model. So that the city's just updating the model to reflect the current conditions out there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so they're not actually measuring the suspended solids? They're just looking at the model,
The model, correct.
and the last time the model was updated was 2014.
2008, it looked like the last time that the city did the model, and then in 14, the modeling the city did back in 18, or 2008 was determined not to be sufficient. So we would be updating our model for the first time since 2008.
So how were these 115 additional BMPs identified?
So most of the 115 were private, private BMPs, and
Give me an example of a private BMP.
private development, residential that's controlled by an HOA.
Okay,
Um,
so what they're doing in
correct.
their best management
Yeah,
practices?
and the reason we're allowed to utilize them because the city has recorded stormwater maintenance agreements for these properties. So, in the research for this modeling, we came across this, that these could be included in the model and the city can utilize that to reduce that annual fee that we're paying to the RONs.
So you're transferring money into this fund, and I guess, one of the things you're transferring from is the Seminole Glen storm study, which is related to stormwater, but tell me about the roundabout repairs, and if we move the 60K away from that, how does that affect the roundabout repairs?
So the roundabout repairs, it was a study the city completed with, it was a joint venture with Dane County and the city of Madison and the city of Fitchburg.
So this is the Velo Underground.
Correct.
Okay.
So there was some flooding that happened during a couple rainfall events, and the study was enacted to come up with an alternative to help improve conveyance during major storm events so that the trails wouldn't be shut down for an extended period of time due to flooding.
Okay.
So an alternative they looked at 3 alternatives. One of the alternatives was selected. At the time, the city of Madison said, hey, we're not putting any more money towards this. It would just be that the county and the city of Fitchburg, and the alternative that was selected, the construction cost at the time, which I believe was like 2021, was $900,000 to improve these culverts, so that the project kind of went on hold, you could say, because the city of Madison, backed out from that.
That's, that Velo Underground is pretty new construction. How did it go wrong so quickly?
I without looking into the report and the details of it, I don't know. So the feasibility study was completed back in 2021. With
And Bill, I'm sorry, Tim. Bill, I think it was mostly the water, when you're on the trail going towards Verona there, then there's the kind of the exit that goes down and takes you down to the circle there. It would wash out. We were concerned about the washout of both the side of that trail and the pilings of the bridge were the kind of the main concerns, and I think that's what was trying to be addressed.
That whole thing was it was redone when Madison, it was shut down for the better part of a year, right? And reconstructed just like 2 years ago.
They didn't do anything with the, where kind of that off ramp off the trail where it comes down and goes underneath, with the pilings of the bridge. I don't think that was really touched. I could be wrong, but I think that's the crux of the issue.
Okay. Bottom line though is that this is labeled bike roundabout repairs, but it's really stormwater issues near the bike roundabout, so it is related. It's not like it's just a convenient other account to pull from.
correct. So
I believe you're accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, the bike roundabout repairs, that funding came from stormwater, therefore that's why we're looking to transfer the 60,000 from there to this to the AECom change order.
What is the schedule for updating this model? I mean, have they started? They're under contract since 2022?
Yes, so the original end date was supposed to be end of December 2023.
Right now.
With the original 60 BMPs, with this additional 115, it'd be October 2024. We would look to.
So were they pretty much done and have to redo, or is this all in addition?
This is in addition, so they don't have to redo anything they've completed to date. This would just be adding on to what they're doing. Also, staff, city staff, since we're fully staffed, we have a part-time stormwater engineer that she would be working on doing some of that modeling too to help soften the cost. So the $126,000 change order would have been a lot larger if we wouldn't have helped out.
And this is the engineering tech you hired today, or?
No, this was the part-time stormwater engineer, Andrea. She's been on board maybe about half a year now.
Okay.
So.
Do you have any preliminary indications, since they were originally supposed to be done about now or a month from now, with the 60, how much of a difference that made? You know, to reduce this $105,000, you're hoping that by adding these other ones in, we're reducing that number. But if they've pretty much run the model for the 60 BMPs and they were gonna be done now, or have they been on hold because we've been talking about adding the other ones in? I was just wondering, you know, what relatively, how running the new model with the 60 BMPs, did that get us pretty close to the compliance, or don't you really know?
I do not know that. I don't think they know that either. But it was determined in our discussions with them that the 115 should be modeled to include them as part of that, to see, you know, the total pollutant load reduction for the city.
Okay.
And you have any sort of a gut feel, is that gonna cut our 105 in half by a factor of 10, or?
Yeah, until the model's complete, we won't know the value that the amount will be reduced by.
Okay, and so like, can you gauge the total scale of these 115 BMPs versus the existing 60? Like, if one of the existing ones is the stormwater ponds at McKee Farms Park, and these private ones are, you know, 1/10 of an acre or something, that's not nearly gonna play as much of a role, right?
Correct. So we haven't, that analysis hasn't happened. I don't believe they're done with the 60 yet. So they're still in the process. You know, the original end date was the end of this month. So they're still working on that, the 60, and then there's also a draft and final report due as part of this.
Dave?
Tim, is it your intention, at some point in the future, you know, this would be an internal function, you know, that our environmental stormwater department would keep this updated?
Yes, that's the intent, so that the city doesn't fall behind and have to do 175 every, 10 years. So we, once this model is complete, we would like to keep it updated as these new facilities come online.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How does the compliance go in the long run? I'm reading this that says we're out of compliance with the TMDL. We're in compliance because we're getting grandfathered 60 to 115 best management practices. But we got a lot of growth and development. So will we always be out of compliance with all our growth and development, or do we have a game plan that says we'll be in compliance because our 115 BMPs never go away? They're not gonna say, yeah, we gave you the credit last time, now what are you gonna do different? But all our growth and development is designed to handle the TMDL?
Yeah, we'll have to see once we input the 175 EMPs, where we are, if we're in full compliance, if we're close to compliance, and then kind of take it from there, on what we need to do to handle the future growth and development. So right now, we're out of compliance and we pay $105,000. So
Is it just like a penalty, or do they do something for that $105,000?
they put that towards adaptive management.
Okay.
So that Yahara does spend that money to do adaptive management within the watershed. So it is getting spent.
So maybe we can learn after we run these 175, what things you get better credit for, what things that even the private ones, what they can do, and then implement some of those in our requirements for new subdivisions or new growth
Absolutely.
areas.
You'd think they would be able to tell us that even now, before we enter those new EMPs.
Well, they probably have to run the whole model in order to determine which ones they get a better bang for their buck on.
Just because of local topography. and
Yeah.
whatnot. Yeah, okay.
Another question, but I'm kind of on that train of thought. There's probably some standard stuff that says you need to build a retention pond.
Yeah,
Terra Vista, you're this huge, you should have a retention pond this big, somewhere on your property. So, go ahead, got a question?
Just a comment, this says we're out of compliance. That's due to a model. I think we're one of the best run stormwater utilities in the state and have been for a long time. We were a pioneer. We put a lot of effort money into this compared to other cities. Madison's stormwaters dump right into the lakes. They don't do anything. So I think it's strictly a model issue. I think our system is up to compliance. The effort, the time, money, and resources we've put into this. Thank you.
All right.
I'm not sure everyone would agree on that, but I don't think it's just a model. But it could be partially a model. Does the city own Winsland? Do you know, Tim?
I believe we do because we, like I mentioned,
She's been
Andrea,
running it, some of it?
she's running it. Ben's our senior environmental engineer, and kind of overseeing and helping her through the modeling of it, so.
Just didn't know if maybe you were using a username under AEComs while they were doing it too.
I believe that we have our own license for that.
All right, if there's nothing else, I'll call the vote. All in favor of resolution R 218-23, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. So moving on here, I wonder if we should entertain the notion of discussing the schematic design for the police facility services first. We didn't get the materials for the packet until today. I don't know if everybody's had time and feels comfortable.
It was only 3 pages.
But there were links in there you were supposed to
Yeah,
follow.
but they had some of that ahead of time for the slideshow and stuff.
I would move amending the agenda to move resolution R 234-23 up.
Okay. Anybody gonna second that? Okay. Ross, are you set now? All right, all in favor of moving R 234-23
So what's the
up?
purpose of it? You think it's gonna take less time than the other one, or why
Well,
are we?
I guess, I don't know that everybody would feel comfortable discussing, I mean, and the materials that we got in the link are not as, the schematic designs are not as well done as the ones that were presented, for instance, in the October meeting for the ad hoc committee.
So you're anticipating that we're going to defer this, and that's why you think
Right,
it'll take
yes.
less time?
Yes. If there's no further discussion, I guess we'll just call a vote here. All in favor of moving resolution R-3423 up, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye?
All right. Nobody opposed, okay. So we'll entertain a motion on this resolution. Who would like to do that?
I'll move. Motion.
I'll second it
Okay.
for discussion purposes.
Yes. Okay, approving the schematic design and preliminary budget for the police services facility. Tim, is this you or do we want Paul to take us through this?
Paul can take us through this.
Good evening, Paul Woodard, Senior Engineer at the city. So what you have before you tonight is the resolution for approving the schematic design and preliminary budget for the police service facility. A couple items to note: the schematic design, the link did include the information from the November ad hoc committee meeting, which has got more detail than the previous meeting in October. And this is just one step of a number of steps for approval in the process. Our next approval process, we'll go through design development, and once that's complete, we'll come back to the council again for approval of the design development. So between now and that next approval, we'll be coming back to RCC with information on different options for sustainability in the building. And we also working with getting Plan Commission comments as well. In terms of the preliminary budget, what we have in the resolution is what was from the programming stage of the project. We're currently updating the estimate to reflect the schematic design, and we expect it to be less than what's showing in the resolution, but we just felt like we needed to have a placeholder in there instead of just randomly picking a number to put in the resolution. So with that, I'd be welcome to answer any questions. Oh, one other thing I want to point out, the reason we're looking at doing this tonight is that we're trying to keep the process moving along. We want to get schematic design approved so we can move to the next stage, which is design development. Our goal is to try to get this out to bid late summer, early fall next year, so we can get the project going before we start incurring winter construction costs. So with only one meeting this month, we want to get it approved in this cycle for this, first half of December. I'd be glad to answer any questions. Well, let me ask Matt. Do you have any other? Matthew Laha from PD. Do you have any further comments you want to add, Matt?
No, sir.
Paul, you said you're expecting updated numbers this week?
Yeah, the Fitchburg Construction is working on them, and we're meeting internally as a design team on Thursday morning, and the idea is to get those out late Thursday or early Friday for the council packet for next week. So the Board of Public Works could potentially just approve this, subject to finance approving the amended dollar amount.
Couple questions. How confident are we on the scope and the estimate? You got a 20% contingency. I could see blowing that really quick, but how confident are we?
No, actually, as we continue to refine the estimate, we actually reduce that number down. So we'll probably reducing it down to 15% in the next estimate. So Pepper Construction is a construction management firm hired by the city to assist us through the design process. And one of the primary things they'll be doing is preparing estimates of the different design stages. So what you have in the packet is the estimate they put together based on the programming of the building. They're now working on an estimate for the schematic design. And then once the next phase, the design development, when that comes back, you'll see a more refined number. And then there'll be one more before we put out the construction. And of course, obviously the final number is when we did the project, that's what we'll know the true cost. But the idea of having Pepper Construction, because they're a construction management firm, they specialize in construction, they bid projects all the time, they know what costs are. And that's why they retain prepare estimates throughout the process to make sure that we're keeping on track. They're not having any big surprises bid day.
So we shouldn't expect any scope creep, you're saying? They got it pretty narrowed down?
Right, especially with schematic design, that's right, because we've got it, we've tuned into the square footage needs of the building and done a detailed floor plan based on, input from the police department. So we're not expecting the building scope to increase any. I mean, the building's pretty well defined in the schematic design. Now we've got to take it to the next stage.
And these are based on the schematic drawings that started on page 28, 29, 30 of the PowerPoint.
We'll pull it up real quick.
That's my understanding.
I have one comment on this. We talk about, I understand it's a new police facility, and then the empty space down in this building is going to be remodeled into other things that needs at City Hall. So one of the areas that you said you were providing for in this police facility was community involvement or community engagement rooms, meeting rooms, doing those kinds of things. I can't remember, I can't find the page that has the.
That's correct. It's a community room, so it's actually a dual purpose room. It's a training room because the police have, estimated around 60 police officers, 20 years roughly. So,
60 police officers in 20 years? It would probably be about 80 police officers in 20 years.
I knew you'd do the number. I would.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you have 80 officers, you need a place to be able to, have a room to be able to do the training. So the idea is this room will be located in the building such that obviously they can use this for training their officers and their staff. And it's also a room that can be divided and partitioned down the middle, but then also it's off the main lobby, so it can also serve as a community room. It's not being, when the police aren't using it for their needs for training.
To me, it seems that it would be more appropriate for community meeting rooms to be provided for when you remodel the city hall type of building than in a police facility. But if there are.
So one of the, if I can interject, as far as the community outreach piece related to the police department, one of the things that our current police department does not have, and what we hope to gain out of this new police facility, is within the schematic designs, there's also a large area for our social worker, our part-time social worker, which we hope to expand to a full-time position. That will also allow our social worker space and opportunity to do community outreach beyond the scope of the police department. It also provides adequate interview room space for victims and witnesses of crimes. As you can see in the interview suite, some of the things and challenges that we face right now with our current police department is an inadequate areas for victims of crimes or witnesses to come into the police department, as we only have one, which we call a soft interview room. This building also provides several spaces for people to come in to feel comfortable, not feel as if they're in a cinder block wall, which is what we're facing right now. We've actually had to take different meeting space from upstairs in City Hall when we had a larger incident. So this design is going to assist with that from a community engagement standpoint.
So I guess my question was, if it is not just designed for extra spaces for the community to use as meeting room space, it's spaces that will be used for police training and other things there, but could be used for that. Because if it was only designed for that, I was thinking that might be unnecessary, because like I said, I don't know what you're planning to do with all the police space that's here now, what that's gonna turn into for this building, but it seems like there would be some opportunities for more community involvement, meeting room space there in the remodel of this. So I don't really know what the whole city hall is, and I don't know if that has been determined yet, or if that's part of this plan, or if it's not. So, one other question I have, how
I
many,
can answer that.
go ahead, Paul.
Not to cut you off, Kim, I can answer that question. We are you're going to be seeing on RFP soon in terms of the remodeling of City Hall, how the space is going to be utilized. And that's something we can look at. But again, as Matt pointed out, the community space in the police facilities is its primary function is for the police use. Secondary usage is, for the community.
There's probably not even a need for another community room, because we have several in the library and in the community center already, and I doubt they are.
That was my thought, is if it was the primary purpose of it was just for community room, maybe we could eliminate that. But if the primary purpose is for related to police activities and in its spare time, it could be used for that, I have no problem with that.
And the other thing is, we do, and it doesn't seem like we have a lot of meeting room space, but I tell you, I've been trying to schedule meetings lately for this police project, and I tell you, it's difficulty. You'd think as many as we have between the library, community center, and City Hall, plenty of availability, but talk to Dina sometimes. She struggles getting space, 2 or 3 hour block room. So it actually fills up more than you think it would, at least during the day.
So how many police officers will this new facility, is it being designed to accommodate? Is what needs for 80?
I believe the original estimates going out 20 to 30 years was anywhere between 80 and 85 officers.
And then there's a fair amount of command staff and civilians workforce as well, in addition to that. Right now.
Yes, that's correct. Currently, we have 12 professional staff, so we estimate that that's going to grow probably in the ballpark of 20 to 25 in the next 20 to 30 years as well.
So what is the, on day one, what's the occupancy rate in the new facility?
Day one, in the next 2026, if everything stays on schedule, we will probably be at approximately 75 with professional staff.
And how long, well, I don't know how to phrase this. I guess one of my big objections that I had from the get-go is that we seem to be building a structure to its finished state today. So rather than designing for future expansion and building something that's going to last us for the next, say, 10 years or something, and assuming that if at that time we have the additional residents in the city, there's a larger tax base to pay for an addition to the facility, rather than paying, operating expenses on the 25% of the building that's not going to be fully utilized for the next decade or more.
I would say the issue with doing that is it's not a typical office space that you have a bunch of office cubes and you can say build 2/3 of it now and build another third, another 10, 15 years. With the way the police is laid out, they've got like specialized areas. They've got an area for investigations, an area for detectives. They got an area for lieutenants. I mean, you have all these specialized areas, and so it's not like you can just go in and add, a couple hundred square feet here, a couple hundred square feet in the building. I mean, because there's specialized uses of the building, the way they're laid out, it'd be very difficult to do that. Again, it's not a typical like an office building like City Hall where you can just add more square footage. You say that's correct, Matt?
I would say that's absolutely correct.
Because you got these different work groups, and you can't really put them together. That's the issue. And you've got different functions going on in the building. You've got a basically a jail area, if you will. You got break rooms, command staff. Again, it's just all these different uses that they're not your typical office use.
There are like zero typical office uses in this facility?
So the building's broken down basically from basement to the second floor. Each is specific to itself. So you got evidence and you got the parking down in the lower level. Then on the main level, you have record staff, you have dispatch, you have the IT area, patrol, and then the holding facility. On the second floor, you'd have the investigations and the command staff. You couldn't add on, it would not make sense to add on to a patrol section next to evidence. You'd have a separated work group, which would lack efficiency. There's really no, other than the communication between the sections of the building or the specific areas of the police department, you wouldn't have somebody in command staff working next to the evidence facility, for instance, at least at this point in the game. So each does have its own specific function, which is how this building is designed.
And some of those functions have specific equipment, like communications the dispatch has got separate consoles, and so you really can't add the space to that. You decide to add other space later on for a future console. So, and records has got their own set of equipment, so, and so on.
So,
The evidence process, whole thing too, in terms of equipment, put labs in different areas.
so is it set up that you could run incident command out of there if you needed fire and everyone located in one?
Yes. There's a major case room. However, this building does not serve as a primary EOC. The backup EOC, or the city's primary EOC, is at Fire Station 1 on Lacey Road. That is not to say that we could not provide some level of a command post from the police department if it was necessary. One of the bigger functions for the police department is to bring in other outside law enforcement agencies. If we were to have a significant and critical incident in the city, we usually bring in multiple agencies from Dane County, Madison, DCI, DOJ, those types of agencies, to bring them in. This facility would provide us the space and the functionality to include them from an organization standpoint and from a command structure, an ICS structure within the police department.
And just so everyone understands, ICS is like incident command system, and that's another purpose for that training, that community rooms, that space would be converted for that use probably, depending on the size of the incident.
Well, I gotta ask this question, does it meet the TMDL modeling standards?
It will. We'll go through. We'll make sure that it meets all the necessary stormwater standards.
Dave.
Dave, you have a question?
Not anymore, it's been answered.
So I guess by far the biggest issue here is we've allocated.
Is this meeting at 5:30?
Nope.
Go down to the next. I mean, we've allocated 35 million. The one and only estimate has come in at 44 million. In the July ad hoc committee meeting, one of the people in the room said, well, how are we supposed to proceed here? Are we designing for based on the square footage from the space needs, or are we designing to get to the $35 million target? That question was not answered, and somehow the design came in, or I guess we were designing for the square footage rather than for the budget. How did that come to be? Why don't, I guess another way of saying is, why do we have only one schematic design rather than one that meets the space needs and one that satisfies the budget?
Well, the architect was hired only to provide one design. I mean, that was approved by the council. If we want to have other design options, then that would have been additional cost to do that. We're trying to design a building that will work for the police department, not just today, not 10 or 15 years like the current facility lasted them, but last 20, 30 years. And just remember, the $35 million was, I think that was started back in 2019 before the pandemic. So that number came from, and that's, there's been a significant amount of inflation the last couple of years. So are we close to what was probably originally planned? Probably, if you take out all the inflation in the last few years. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm not anticipating that will be above the 44 million was, based off of the preliminary programming, and obviously I think we recognize the council won't be approving that type of dollar amount for the building. We'll have to come work on the design, work on the design estimate this week, and we'll come up with our number for finance and the common council next week. And I guess my recommendation would be for the board to approve it, subject to finance approving the funding.
So I think you just said that the council approved funding for only one design?
When the architect contract was approved back in April, that was part of that's a scope of services attached to that. And we did not ask them to provide multiple design options.
Is the contract set up to help us do change management with it? You feel pretty confident that the 20% contingency is more than enough to cover it, but again, scope creep, costs of materials can really balloon. That, do we have a contract that said to manage change orders or change management, we'll start taking these features out, or we'll start doing this less, or?
Yeah, exactly. As we continue to go through the design process, we'll be identifying alternate, we'll call add-ons. So, we'll have some items in the budget or in the bidding document that we can pull out depending on where the final bids come in at. And that's the reason for having Fitchburg Construction involved in the project to help us manage the project to keep it on budget. That's why we're doing these estimates early on as we go through the process. We don't have any we don't have big surprises on bid day, but. So the combination of city staff, architect, and Fitchburg Construction managing any changes to the project. But again, we went through a pretty detailed programming exercise and through schematic design, working closely with the police department and their staff on what works for their department, the way they want to run today and in the future. So we're confident with the design layout that this building will work. Now we just have to start moving to the next steps of the design development.
So basically, you're asking us to approve this schematic design, which will take you to design development, and you'll get a lot more detailed information. I mean, you can't get some of that information in schematic design. You've got to go to the next phase in order to get the options and the details, and the more detailed plan of the whole thing. So that's what you're asking for us tonight, is to go from schematic, basically, to approve the schematic, which will allow them to go into design development.
Right, we're basically, it's equivalent to what you do in your business. This is about the 30% design stage is where we're at right now.
And you're right, in order to get the answers, more detailed answers you need to go past that point in time, so.
And like I said, we'll come back, once we design development, which is about 60%, we're coming back to the council, and the board again for approval again.
Should we call the vote?
Well, I've got a couple more questions. On the schematic design, the overall site plan, can you tell me the purpose of that north driveway along Research Park? It seems, I don't know, I mean, going back to our stormwater discussion, I mean, it doesn't seem necessary given that we've got the public entrance on Research Parkway and then another entrance on Lacey. That those two driveways there seem pretty long. I presume that's due to the slope.
Well, yeah, the first one, yes, because of the slope coming down. So the very northerly Research Park Drive entrance is to provide access to the public lot, but then also provide access to the lower level, which is where the squads will be stored. We're really going to try to minimize the goal will be try to minimize the amount of traffic using the Lacey Road entrance, and that's only left out for emergency only. So it's because of the site layout. Oh, the other thing I mentioned too is the fire department's going to want to be able to get their fire truck all the way around the backside of that building. It's also a fire code requirement that we need to be able to drive one of their trucks all the way around the backside of that building because of the size of it. So you can't get, so the only way to get to that lower level, is, and be able to drive through is off of research coming out the Lacey Road. And that's a fire department requirement. In addition, just in terms of the way the space is laid out.
I guess I'll also share that I did go on the field trip to the two facilities back in September. The two facilities that Chief Morales had chosen, Mount Prospect, Illinois, and Skokie, Illinois. Both of those cities are nearly twice the population of Fitchburg, and they each got a new facility that cost about half what this initial estimate is here. Those were existing buildings, so it's difficult to do an apples to apples comparison, but it's still, I mean, has there ever been a bigger project in the city of Fitchburg's history? I mean, even at 35 million, we're talking about $1,000 per man, woman, and infant in the city. That seemed like a lot to me.
How long ago were those built?
Within the last, well, I think one of them was in 2020 it opened, and the other one may have been a little, maybe as much as a decade old.
I mean, I just know we're adding a quarter of the space in the office building that we're currently at, that we moved into 2017, and it is costing us as much to build out that quarter of the space as it did to do the other 3/4 of in 2017. Which totally shocked me and went all the way around the whole thing, but the cost of building in terms of materials availability, in terms of labor costs, in terms of everything else has just skyrocketed in the last 5 years. As much as you don't like to admit it, you don't want it, it's a fact of life. You can't get it for less than that. It is a lot of
I think
$1 million is a lot of money.
this project had been built. Yeah, this project had been built back in 2019, was originally approved. I think we could have been down for 35 million, but we are where we are.
And I think one of the biggest fears from the design group is if you create a building that will sustain for 10 years, much to your point, then you add on in the next, 10 years, that add-on is going to cost just as much as the actual building, the original building. So we're trying to build a building that's going to be functional, that's going to last the police department for a significant period of time, so we don't repeat the same mistakes or same pitfalls as we're seeing in this current building that we're in.
Yeah. Well, you're currently in 18,000 square. What's your total square footage, including offsite evidence and you've recently taken over some underground parking? Is that correct?
No, that parking was originally designed for the police department, so we're roughly at about 18,000 square feet. Currently we're at max capacity in our evidence facility. We have no mail lockers available for new hires. We're at max capacity in our armory right now. So needless to say, we're not only will this building provide us with more usable space, but it will also provide the city with additional space because they have 0 office space available in any other part of City Hall. IT recently moved down to the old EOC in the basement, so I'm sure that's a really great working space for them.
No more questions from me.
Either. I mean, it's not, I think you need to go to the next stage to get the more questions answered. And the things that you're pointing out, Bill, nobody says that they can't be refined somewhat in the design development or the design development phase. I don't think we can get the answers to all the things that you have now at
Which is-
schematic design.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I just, this is an enormous expense, and it's, not having been on the ad hoc committee, this is really, I mean, it's weighing heavily on me.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And as it should, as you are responsible for the Fitchburg taxpayers. Dave has a question or a comment.
Dave, you're muted.
You're muted, Dave.
Just a comment, Bill, I feel the same, weight, I gulp, see this number, and I think this is what we need to do. What I would say is, we have to look at other borrowing and building and say, we can't do everything. We can't do everything. This is a priority that I think most of the city is behind, and we're gonna have to, pick and choose on many of these other things we talk about. Well, we want to do, or it'd be nice. They might have to be delayed. That's it's a decision you and I will have to make as council members. I don't like the big number, but at the same token, I don't want to have to rest of my life. I don't ever want to hear police departments saying they don't have enough space, or we have a bad facility and we can't recruit people. I want this done with, and so we can move forward on a facility we're proud of. It's going to cost our residents a lot of money, but also as the city grows, the new residents coming in will also be helping us pay off the debt.
So once we move on to the next phase, this is a question for Paul. How easy or difficult is it if we needed to make adjustments to the design? Like, personally, I can't bring myself to vote in favor of that firing range facility. I mean, I know the chief has said that, the more familiar somebody is with their gun, the less apt they are to use it. I'm not sure how that's possible. If you learn a foreign language, you're gonna speak it more often. If you learn to play piano, you're gonna play it more often. If you're comfortable around your gun, why would you use it less rather than more? And that's a huge expense within this structure, right? I mean, I understand construction costs have gone up and everything, but what if construction costs had gone up 10x? Would we still be talking about this exact same facility? No, we would scale it back, right? So, I mean, where do we draw that line?
Well, first off, it's more than just a firing range. It's a tactical training room, and as far as whether it ends up being built with the equipment necessary to operate as a rifle range, that's something can be easily taken out of the design. If we're running into budget issues like that one, something you'd add to outfit it later on. But at least you want to build the space now, because to add that space later would be extremely expensive after the fact. So I think it's important that we at least include the space for it in there. And as we continue down the path of design development and we get a better handle on the numbers, so as they continue to get refined more, a determination will be made whether we include that or don't include that in the base bid of the project. Maybe it's an alternate item, or it's grant funded.
So a training facility like this is something that Verona does not have, Stoughton doesn't have, McFarland doesn't have, Fitchburg doesn't yet have, Monona doesn't have. And a lot of the surrounding municipalities have built, their facilities their police facilities are newer than ours. They have chosen to forego such a training facility. I don't know what their reasoning is. It's probably expense to a large extent, but I mean, this sounds like something that, the county ought to be looking at, since there are so many municipalities that that don't have something like this? You know, why should Fitchburg build one of these when no one else has?
Well, I can't speak to other communities, but I can tell you from, a staffing standpoint, Matt can chime in here, is that if you have the space within your own facility, you can respond a lot quicker to, incidents that happen around the country. They can, train right away based on what they're seeing on what they've learned from other incidents in the country. Plus, you got all the logistics of, going to another facility for training. You got to schedule it. You got to get people drive there, and you lose them for the whole day. Whereas if then you just go down for an hour or two, at the beginning of the shift, it's easy to accommodate. It's easier to get people trained up versus making go to a different facility. Matt, you want to expand on that a little bit?
Well, sure. Having this on.
Go ahead, Dave.
I just want Matt to, if Matt can address, Alder Jetzer's questions on that, or.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest pitfalls that we've been experiencing within the county is the lack of training space. And while the county does have their outdoor range and Madison does have their indoor range, that space is at a premium. Beyond that, law enforcement is in a recruitment struggle right now, staffing struggle, like Dave was alluding to prior to the meeting. Most places are in a staffing struggle right now. We see this as an opportunity to not only train and maintain highly competent officers, but also serve as a recruitment tool to get those officers that we desperately need in the city for the community. To Paul's point, the training components of this building will provide supervisory staff and training staff an immediate response to identifying any deficiencies that officers may have, to replicate calls for service that we experience on the street, bring them back to the police department almost immediately if certain deficiencies or different ways of handling a certain situation are identified. They can train immediately. Many times, if we want to bring an officer out to the range or to a training facility to try to be able to provide that space in order for an officer to duplicate that situation, it takes 1 to 2 weeks in order to facilitate that. And a lot of times that immediate learning moment and corrective action is lost. A lot of times the officer or the supervisor, they lose a lot of that training ability, that training quality. And to your point before, Alder Jetzer, regarding the chief's previous comment about providing a tactical training bay or tactical training area for officers to use their weapon less, is it provides them with adequate training for them to experience situations in a highly stressful environment that officers face on a daily basis, provides them with a training area in order to not have it the first time that they experience that training event out on the streets, and provide them a safe area where they can work through those situations and be able to handle themselves. And a lot of times what happens with officers that you see in officer-involved shootings around the country is they're experiencing a situation that they can't control because they've never experienced it before. So providing them that space to experience those gives them that capability that when they're in the situation, they've experienced it before and they know how to react and they know how to handle themselves, which will hopefully decrease their level of force necessary to handle that situation.
Do you have fiber optic connected to the facility, or will be?
Yes, it will be. It'll be connected to fiber optic, and it'll be connected to City Hall as well, too.
Okay, so you'll be able to tap into other technologies that surrounding communities will have, shots fired or cameras and stuff, if you need to see. Right?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. You're already asking if we'll be able to access other communities' cameras?
Assuming you'll have the IT capability to partner with surrounding communities. So if they have shots fired technology, you'll be able to tap into that, or if you wanna see cameras that they have, you'll be able to tap into that.
Well, we're connected to the consortium, right, Matt? So we get information that way too, right?
Correct, and in a lot of the surrounding communities with a lot of their Ring camera capabilities or flock cameras, it's all web-based. So a lot of times we'll be able to access, with permissions, of course, those cameras through the internet.
Okay. Ready to vote?
If there's no other
I
discussion.
just have one question, if I could. Yeah. I ask one last question.
Yeah,
One concern I always have with a facility like this, Matt, is that, a mentally unstable person coming in and wanting to do a large amount of harm. Yeah. Is it set up to, that we can, isolate that, I suspect you've put some thought into that, but that's, things like this are a target also, and so what your thoughts are on that?
Well, I know the way that it's designed as far as the public access areas, once they do enter, if anywhere to try to access the more secure areas, where staff would be located, 97% of the time, all of those areas are hardened, and would prevent anybody from just walking in and then accessing any unauthorized areas of the police department. And there will be a security fence, from what I understand, around the exterior of the staff parking area, and then we'll have obviously cameras throughout the exterior to provide. Since we're staffed through our dispatch 24/7, they'll be able to access those cameras and monitor those cameras. So we're able to identify anybody that would be coming unauthorized, people coming onto the property.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to take us into the weeds.
No worries.
anything else? All right, well, sorry for the rearrangement there. I was expecting somebody to say they weren't comfortable talking about this tonight. All right, we'll go ahead and call the vote.
So Paul had made a suggestion about approving contingent upon finance and funding. Is that what you said, Paul?
Yeah, as a recommendation, that's the thought I had, if you wanted to, because again, we don't have the final number, we'll have that next week, so you could just make it subject to finance approving the dollar amount. Because really, the board, if you go back to what the board's charter ordinance, if you will, is, you're really just approving the building, not the funding of it.
So do we need to amend,
But it's up to you.
include that at this point in time before we vote? I think
Yes.
okay. Did I make the motion to approve this resolution? I don't remember. I know I did on the last one. I know I did on the AECom, but I don't know if I did
Maybe
on
the
this one.
secretary wrote it down? Or are they gonna look at the video
They
later?
look at the video.
Later.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, let me make a motion then to amend the approval of the resolution based on approval of the number from the finance committee, or how Paul worded that. He did it probably better than I did.
Contingent on approval of the finance committee.
Yes, the number from the finance committee. So will anyone second that?
I'll second.
So we
Okay.
vote on
Any
the amended
discussion on that?
resolution?
All right. All in favor of, do we have official wording on this?
We have to vote on the amendment and then on the final.
Right, do we have,
The final.
what is the exact verbiage of the amendment?
Contingent upon, go ahead.
Subject to finance approval of the budget amount.
Subject to the budget, the finance approval of the budget amount.
Subject.
That's correct.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 No opposed? Okay. So now we'll call the vote on the overall resolution with Kim's amendment, approving the schematic design and preliminary budget for the police facility. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Moving on, agenda item 5B. Do we have a motion to approve resolution R19723?
I'll move to approve resolution R197-23.
Second.
All right. This is the traffic management process. Dave, yeah, go ahead.
My intention originally, I wanted to have public input, public session at council before this came back and approved. And at last council, Chad said, no, we can't have a special meeting. So my thought was, we've heard from Board of Public Works has heard from Jay and Sue Easterday and a few other people on this. I would prefer we encourage them to come to the next council meeting, make their points, and then we would vote on this at our last December meeting. I don't believe this will be on the council agenda for next Tuesday.
No, this will show up on the January 9th meeting.
Yeah, so I'd like, like I say, I'd like to, if you want to hear from Jay again, please don't let me stop you, but like I say, I'd like to encourage him and other people to come to council for agenda items, not agenda items, and speak to this. And, let council hear that, and then I'd prefer we vote on it at our next meeting after that's been done. But I'll defer to the other members here too.
I'm okay with that. Can we get input from law enforcement on this? If they like it or not? They're part of the solution here in the 3 E's. But this is all just
They
the
seem to have
engineering
left.
side. What's that? Oh, they just left, yeah.
Matt has left, yeah.
I think I can kind of speak slightly to that.
Okay.
I've worked with Ned, what's his last name?
Hartwick.
Yeah, Lieutenant Hartwick.
Hartwick.
But most of these changes are made with his support. Some of them he feels were opening up to maybe more traffic calming projects than we might be able to handle, but that's, I don't 100% agree with him on that, but that's as much as I'll speak for him there.
Well, yeah, I guess I'll note that the CIP amendment that I had made called for traffic calming, partially due to, an incident involving guns and people driving away at a high rate of speed, and there was another last week before, another incident in which the report was, I heard a shot fired and then a car speeding away. So, I guess I'll reiterate that the physical design of the road can mitigate, to some extent, bad behavior. Yeah, Dave.
Yeah, I understand your thoughts on that. I don't think I can, I can equate or feel this would prevent anything like that. This is more, normal traffic or normal things. A person with a gun, all bets are off. But I think this is more to the day to day, non-felon, driving in our streets that are, maybe going too fast, and give the neighborhoods a mechanism, is how I view it. I don't think I can do much about the
Agree.
persons that want to do great harm. I'm sorry.
Primary purpose is to prevent speeding and rat runs and whatnot. How does the board feel about
I agree.
Jay and Sue speaking tonight?
I think we can get their input or listen to them because they've sat here through this portion of it. Like I told you guys earlier, I have not had the opportunity to read through Jay's email, so I am perfectly fine with not voting on this, but since they're here, I think maybe it would help give us a little bit more background to know what was going on and then contemplate what the things are and defer the voting, so that would be my preference.
Sue, are you and Jay coordinating on this? And do you want to speak or do you both want to speak?
I think we each have our own comments, but Jay may want to go first.
Okay, so, yeah, Jay, I'll let you go ahead and speak.
Are we on like a 3-minute thing here?
I was just gonna say, let's keep it to, a few minutes here. Just, in regards to Kim's comments, Jay, I'm glad you're engaged in city politics and whatnot. I do have a couple of requests, though. One is, if you're gonna send us an email that is rather lengthy, can you please include an executive summary at the top so we can get, your high-level bulleted list of points you're trying to get across without any significant investment in time? Because this was, like I mentioned earlier, 2,900 words in an email regarding an 1,800-word policy document. And that's, and so I guess the next point I'll make is that you sent it at noon, and our meeting started at 4:30. That's, noon is the middle of the workday for those of us who have full-time jobs. There's no way we can reasonably digest and properly, process your email. So I guess those are my thoughts.
Well, Alder Jetzer, I appreciate the feedback. I want to share a couple of other background aspects. I'm very ill with COVID tonight. And I will proceed to offer commentary tonight. Starting with, I'd like to remind everybody that this document was posted on Friday afternoon on the city website for the purposes of this meeting. And the reason this email wasn't sent until this morning or at noon, because it took that long to put all this together. And I don't agree with your characterization of me dabbling in politics. I'm dabbling in citizen involvement in a matter that affects the street I live on and a number of other people. I appreciate your point about an executive summary, and had I had time, I would have provided that in addition to this level of detail. There's kind of a chicken and egg quandary here in the sense that the detail is needed to explain why some changes are required. But in order to do that, it just takes some time. And I would remind everybody that we are here tonight because when this was originally presented to this board for approval, there was no 3-page background memo and a 5-page underlined cross-out version of the original proposal. I'd also like to point out that the process that led to the current neighborhood traffic management process, that took over a year with an ad hoc committee meeting monthly and a number of public involvements. This is a very significant revision to something that has stood the test of time for 20 years. And it's being basically shepherded through the process very quickly in comparison to what had happened in the past. So with that background, I'll just offer a few thoughts on a condensed version of what we have here. First of all, I'll start by going backwards. Item 11 asks that staff be directed to prepare a response to these comments. and have that available so that it can be utilized to prepare marks for the TTC meeting in a week and a half, and also for the council meeting. There is no, or very little public involvement, and that just doesn't seem fair to a lot of people when you're changing something this significantly. Secondly, in regard to the current process, a neighborhood basically sets up a committee in consultation with the city engineer, and you come up with a plan, and that plan is then voted on by the neighborhood. The proposed revisions eliminate that level of input. Another aspect to this is approval of the TTC in addition to approval of BPW. That seems to be overkill. TTC has ideas that they think BPW should be aware of. They have the ability to bring that to the PPW. Doesn't have to have separate approvals. Same way with the city engineer veto of any plan developed by the traffic coordinating committee. That veto doesn't seem fair. The city engineer can bring the concerns with the neighborhood plan to the council, and the council will have final say. So there's a number of detailed comments in here, and I'm sorry for that, but I'm also pointing out again, these comments are driven by significant changes in a process that involves the public and has been on the books for 20 years. There's another aspect to this too in regard to, and I'm sorry I'm taking so much time, but again, this is a very complicated matter. There's several community action requests already pending, and fairness would possibly indicate that certain features of this process should be exempted or grandfathered. I know this came up a month ago. I think Ms. Lobdell raised it, but it seems unfair to change a process in midstream. And I encourage you to consider that point. Just wrapping up here, almost half of this memo is rationale for pointing out why we think these changes are needed. And I would hope that the decision tonight is to defer action on this and actually have some people meet on this to see if we can't figure out a way to solve these issues. And another option example is if the Director of Public Works or the TTC doesn't agree with a plan developed by the neighborhood, let the council make the call. We don't need a complicated dispute resolution process to iron this out. There's other ways to more streamline and straightforward deal with these issues. So again, I hope you decide to not act on this and allow further public input. But if you do act, then there's a long list of things that you might want to consider including in your recommendations tonight to the council. Because this is not going to be taken up until, what, the 9th of January? And so there's plenty of time to try to work some of this out to avoid further debates about some of these features. And thank you tonight for giving me extra time tonight. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you for your comments. Dave?
Jay, okay, I think you heard me say, there won't be a special agenda item at council, to get the public input. Chad told me this couldn't be done for something like this. I would encourage you, where else, to come to the next council meeting and speak to this, in the public input for non-agenda items this coming Tuesday of next week. They limit you to 3 minutes. Maybe you could talk to divide this up between you and Sue or a few other people, because I know they pretty strict on the 3 minutes. But I would encourage I would encourage you and others to come and provide your input at that. at that council meeting.
Thank you.
I think Sue's gonna speak.
Sue?
I think we're gonna defer to next meeting, so that'll be the last agenda item.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wherever.
That's right, new camera system. Hi, Sue Easterday, 2731 Osmondson Road. I will take less than 3 minutes. And one of the things that took the time to put this document together was to run this past 10 families or 8 other families. It's complicated to explain that to someone who is concerned but doesn't have the background or history that, you know, Jay's lived in the area longer than I have. And so it took a lot of time. And while it does seem wordy, I think if you do take the time to read all of it, it meshes together and explains. A lot of it's just rationale. Why are we asking this? Why are we asking that? So that's all I'll say about the document. And then going back to the question I have, where I'm hoping someone on this committee can ask staff if they could help provide some background about the efficacy of striping roads to control traffic. I do internet searches and everything I see doesn't relate to neighborhoods such as ours. They're more in higher density areas, areas where the roads may be connectors to business areas, or there was one other factor that I'm not remembering now, but I'm not seeing any studies that relate to striping of roads being an option that would fix problems that people complain about with speeding. And so if the staff has some access to things behind a paywall, and I really would like to look at not just a result or summary, I would like to look at the actual data, how a study was set up, under what conditions, because that would just help to understand that. And then I'd also, completely switching topics for 30 seconds or less, thank Ross Kaler for something that he's done, managing all the wildlife crossing signs.
You should thank Mark Hodel for that more
Yes.
than me.
Well, you get. I visit someone who lives in the High Line frequently, and at the golf course on Traceway is a pair of sandhill cranes that have been there for a number of years. And they walk across Traceway slowly, and the traffic there is busy. So having the crossing signs, not every driver sees them, but it's nice that they're there. And I think they finally flew south now, the birds, so everyone's safe for another year. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I can kind of say something about the striping right now, if that's all right with this board. But the striping is one tool in the toolbox of the NTMP, as it's called now. And if studies don't show that striping would be effective on a road, it wouldn't be something that staff would pursue in that specific area.
All right. Did you want to walk through at a high level the changes to the TMP?
Sure. Which tab? There we go. So this is basically the memo that's attached to this agenda is kind of a very high level summary. As Jay stated, there's a lot of red lines in the comparison version. But basically, starting with the name change, that's kind of the main summary point of a lot of these changes. Taking out the word neighborhood from the neighborhood traffic management process kind of identifies the change in the type of road that can be included in this process. It's not eliminating its use in neighborhoods, but it's expanding its use to possibly other types of roads. Changing requests from being submitted by the list of people that could submit them previously to anyone associated with the city of Fitchburg is also a broadening measure, goes along with the name change. And then getting into some of the speed limit and 85th percentile speed changes. All of these changes also increase the amount of roads that can have traffic calming looked at under this process. We're increasing the speed limit baseline. Previously, roads that had speed limits posted over 25 miles an hour could not be included in this process. Same with the 85th percentile speed. We're basically changing that to lower the required 85th percentile speed to move forward in the process. As Jay said, there's a lot of community action requests currently in the pipeline. And this is actually a change that would allow those community action requests to move forward, because right now, Osmondson Road specifically has an 85th percentile speed of 33 miles per hour, which does not meet the current NTMP baseline for 85th percentile speed. So it cannot move forward in the process.
Can I ask a question now?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the phase 1 treatments, it says, average daily traffic greater than 200 vehicles per day.
Mm-hmm.
And phase 2 says ADT needs to be between 500 and 3,000. So what happens if you qualify for phase 1 but not phase 2 based on those vehicles, the ADT?
Then you're eligible just for the phase 1 treatments, which are basically eliminates the engineering component. We can put up speed trailers or do neighborhood education, but the city won't spend the money to put a speed bump on that street, basically.
So go back to your 85th percentile.
Mm-hmm.
You think you're including more people because the 85th percentile is, I guess I don't really understand your chart. You have 10, the 85th percentile is more than 10 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. It can or it cannot go. So the way I read this, phase 2 treatment criteria is if your posted speed limit is 25, 30 miles an hour and your 85th percentile needs to be higher than 40 miles per hour or less.
If the posted speed limit is 30, then you're eligible for phase 2 treatment if the 85th percentile is 40 or greater, right?
Correct.
And that seems really, I mean, to have your 85th percentile be 10 miles an hour faster than your posted speed limit?
So previously, the NTMP, the street was only eligible if the posted speed limit was 25 miles
Right,
per hour
right.
or lower.
Okay, so I see that change is good.
And the
because now you're-
85th percentile speed had to be 35 miles per hour or greater. So previously, at 25 miles an hour, it had to be a 10 mile per hour difference.
So the only one you're really changing is the 25 to 30, because the rest of them are all still 10, 15 to 25, 20 to 30, 30 to
Correct.
40, 35 to 45.
Correct, yes. 25 miles per hour, that posted speed limit is, I don't know an exact percentage, but almost all of our neighborhood type streets.
Oh, yeah, I was
We're
gonna
not gonna
ask,
debate this right now, we're just going through the changes. I didn't understand.
I was also gonna ask about that.
Okay.
It's 10 over, 10 over, 5 over, 10 over, 10 over.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem to make a whole
And
lot of
that-
sense.
I don't know how many 15 or 20 mile per hour zones we actually have in the city.
None besides school zones.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Then going, I guess, moving on in the changes, I shortened the amount of meeting expectations to kind of remove a barrier to residents being on the traffic calming committees. 8 meetings is a big commitment. So that was to try to expedite this process. The city engineer having final approval of the traffic calming plan, just like I said, it ensures that these plans use sound engineering principles, and the city isn't installing a traffic calming component that doesn't follow engineering principles and might need to be taken out immediately for safety reasons. As Jade Hockmuth stated, removed the resident survey portion. The NTMP already requires the community action request forms. I see that as basically a form of a survey, and having 2 resident surveys in this process seemed excessive to me. I added approval by the Transportation and Transit Commission because this type of issue falls under their charter. I added back in the follow-up evaluation section, basically to allow these changes to be evaluated at a later date and make sure that they're still effective. I reduced the amount of signatures required for the community action request form. When you get into higher density areas, getting 50% of households to sign this form becomes unnecessarily burdensome. And as I already stated, part of the goal of this was to broaden the amount of areas that this could be used, and higher density areas is one of the places I was hoping to broaden this to. I changed some of the formulas and point values in the score sheet to better reflect different safety priorities and to simplify some of the formulas. I think Sue stated some understanding issues where explaining this to a regular citizen is complicated, and the score sheet was one of the places where that was most evident. And then I removed Appendix C and D, which showed possible traffic calming measures. I felt that those calming measures were limiting to what was expected of this process, and the intent is to basically replace those appendices with a web page that can be updated and changed as studies come out and different traffic calming measures are favored in the engineering community.
And that seems like a good idea because technology changes all the time, and then you would have to amend this plan, so if you have it as a link to that. And they did seem to more fit just neighborhoods rather than your speed. One of my just general observations of this is that you're opening it up a lot more, and there's gonna be a lot more things, and it's going to be a lot more staff time intensive. And I guess I'm not sure that's what we really want, but maybe it is.
So one of the limiting factors there is we're still capped by the amount of funding that this particular fund receives. Right
But you
now,
still have to go through all the evaluations in order to get that far.
yes,
So how
yeah.
long does it take to go, like, the score sheet will guide you, right? I mean, that'll filter out.
Yeah, exactly.
Very few though. I mean, by only needing 30 points, man, you can get 30 points on one item in that thing.
Most of them have a cap.
I know, but still, it.
You can get 20 points on one and 10 on another pretty easily. Though,
Yeah,
you're right.
I mean, to me, 30 points seemed awfully low. Because it seems like, again, that's going to, you get to 30 points, you can be through criteria 1 and 2 and be at 30 points, and then you might as well not even do the rest, because it passes that criteria, and it's going to put more of these on your plate. And like I said, maybe that is the intention, but
Yeah.
it seems like an awful lot more city staff time and energy to me.
So those evaluations, the biggest piece of staff time is actually setting up the traffic counter, the speed counter. That takes my engineering technician probably an hour and then another half hour to take it down. We leave those up for a week or 2 weeks depending on the street. And then actually analyzing that data is usually another hour or 2, depending on the street. So if we're inundated with requests, it could add up pretty quickly. But right now, we have 3 community action requests saved up basically because they don't meet the criteria to move forward in the current NTMP. So I felt that using those 3 that I've gotten in the past year I've been with the city, I didn't feel like it would be too much of a burden on staff, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah,
So.
well, I mean, I think by the changes you made here, you're going to get a lot more community action requests. And if that's the desire of the city to have a lot more people ask for you looking to do a bunch of different things on a bunch of different streets, I think you'll probably meet that here. If it's not the desire to vastly expand what they're gonna be, then maybe you need to reconsider some. But I'm not sure, you know, what your intention is. If you think there's a lot more people in the city with a lot more, you know, by having the smaller group and by broadening it to a lot more streets, I can see the potential for you getting a lot more of these. And if that is, like I said, if that's your intention, to listen to all of those or to deal with all of those from a city staff perspective, then that's fine. I think you'll meet that by doing a lot of these things. If it's not your intention, then I think you need to try to be a little bit more restrictive in some of these. So some of it depends on what is the city's intention to the whole thing. I mean, from Tim's perspective, you think it's, you want a lot more of these requests, you want to look at a lot more things, you want to get a lot more input from the city from, you know, a smaller group of people and be looking at them? I don't know. To me, it seems like you have a lot of things on your plate already, but like I said, I'm not 100% sure what your intention is from the city's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely do have a lot on our plate, but I think, you know, the year that Ross and I have been here, the requests that have come in haven't met the criteria, but are warranted in some of the areas in neighborhood, I think, and that's kind of what we're running up against is, you know, here the city has a policy, it's not meeting the criteria for us to do anything, however, us kind of looking at it, we do at least feel some stuff could be implemented to help with some of the situations that are coming across our desk. So, you know, I guess it's probably a balance maybe we need to achieve is to maybe lower some, but not too much where it is too much where stuff's coming in and the city doesn't have the funding now to do all this stuff. I think probably more of a balance is what we need to look at.
That's fair.
And I think
this could be informative too. If you are inundated, then this will, you know, we can decide, hey, as we build new neighborhoods, we evidently need to be building our streets differently.
well,
But it's
think
not
you
just
might be able to
neighborhoods
argue that,
anymore.
right?
You're not restricting the neighborhoods. There could be.
True. But
Isn't it commercial?
Yeah.
Mhm. Part of the reasoning for expanding it to commercial areas is we've gotten complaints about Research Park Drive, which isn't a neighborhood,
Right.
and really the current process can't really be used there. But we think, like
But
Tim said, looking at
can't-
it, it might.
Can't you, the city, just feel, if they have complaints on Research Park Drive and it doesn't meet this criteria, can't you look at it from an engineering standpoint and say, yes, this is a problem, yes, something needs to be done? I mean, it doesn't have to be the result of somebody submitting a request, does it? Just from an engineering standpoint? I mean, if somebody identifies a problem, or several people identify a problem to bring to the city, we think it is, you could take it on if you wanted to, or.
As long as it's warranted and there's the engineering justification, I think we just have to be careful of, hey, this area of the city didn't meet the criteria, but we put something in, and then another area of the city comes to us and we deny that, and then they go, hey, but you guys did it over here, they didn't meet the criteria, why are you denying us when we didn't meet the criteria? So, as long as that engineering justification's there, maybe something we could look at.
I encourage you to keep doing this. I think you will get a lot more requests, but that's good. And if anything, it should lead to maybe a tweak in design standards. And particularly my gut tells me your new development has sidewalk. A lot of the stuff you're putting this in, they're walking on the road. You're not collecting that volume of traffic. Maybe it shows up in your crash records, I don't know, but I just concerned that's where you're gonna get the most requests saying, don't feel safe walking on the road. And so we put more mitigation in there, that's good. I think that'll lead to design standards when you're redoing a road. You're not gonna force a sidewalk in there, but you may build one of these mitigation standards when you're doing the resurfacing or reconstruction. So hopefully it leads to that, and it's not a special request, then you just say, hey, we got it, it worked in these locations, and we got data to support it, and then we have it. Now, the actual formula you have, part of me says it's kind of skewed towards higher ADT roadways. And those higher ADT roadways are probably the higher speed roadways, and your mix again of pedestrian, bikes, kids, it's gonna be a lot lower risk there than on these lower volume roads. And part of me says it might be skewed because you may not have crash data at all the locations. You're rating it on 2,000 ADT, or vehicles per day. You may not get that on some of those really low volume roadways. That, again, you'll probably still meet the 30 points somewhere, somehow.
I think
you're gonna
meet
Because 20 is gonna
almost
be your
everywhere.
speed, and my guess is most of those 25 ones, everyone's driving over the speed on it right now, but maybe not on a 30-miler, but.
You bring up an interesting point. I mean, we had provisions in here already for if this was a school zone, but now that we're broadening this from just residential to also include commercial, should there be a factor in there for residential in addition to school? Or just, I guess more generically, the type of road.
I think that a lot of that stuff is captured in other more specific areas in the score sheet, like in the pedestrian areas or like the school zone, stuff like that.
You're counting speed based on those boards, right? Or do you have actual trailers where you could
We
video
have
coverage?
we have what's we call them stealth units. They don't display the speed. They're just a gray box that you don't really notice when you're driving, so they don't necessarily skew speeds like a speed board might.
But you can't pick up pedestrian movement or bike movement.
No, for pedestrian and bike counts, we do manual counts right now, but I'm looking into getting automated counters for those.
Okay. That would be good.
Those just cost money.
I know. Trail cam
I'm not sure
cameras.
how accurate they are either.
Some of the expensive ones say they're fairly accurate, but
The salesman assured me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, you got a question?
Our trail cams pick up a lot.
I was just gonna suggest, I'm in favor of deferring this to our next meeting. I would encourage all the council members, read through it and bring your thoughts, things you like or don't like, that we can you can beat it around and come to a resolution at next council meeting.
Council-
Don't mean to limit you, but I thought there was another meeting some of you wanted to get to.
Well, yeah, but it's.
Started
probably-
an hour ago.
Yeah.
Wait,
Oh,
Dave, you,
okay.
Chad's been in here 3 times trying to get Ross over there.
No, he's trying to use this room.
Oh, he's trying to use his room.
Dave, you said council twice. Did you mean council or Board of Public Works?
Well, it'll come back. I want it to come back for us to vote at council at the last meeting in December.
I think
But I would,
is next Tuesday, right?
Yes.
For council, yes.
it'd be the, council is next Tuesday, and I, like I say, I've told Jay and other people, you need to come and speak there. I'd like all the council members to, to hear what they have to say.
Okay.
They'll have that, they'll provide that council, we'll approve whatever we approve at the next Board of Public Works meeting. And then on the 9th, it'll be for, come before council. 9th of January.
Okay, so Dave is moving that we defer this until the December 18th Public Works meeting.
That's confirmed.
So is there any opportunity for staff to meet with Jay and see if there is, or are you to see, look through his comments to see if there's anything that you would recommend as change? We're just about done. We're deferring.
Sorry to be passed. We had over.
Or have you already taken those things into consideration when you did this version? Is that,
The email that he sent today, no.
okay. So maybe just to look at those and see if any of those are valid or whatever before or the staff thinks that they are applicable to the situation. I mean, they're probably all valid, but. Did we need a second to defer?
Yes.
I'll second to defer.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. We will talk about this on December 18th. Okay, that brings us to announcements, which is just that our next Public Works Board meeting is Monday, December 18th at 5:30 p.m. Any other announcements from anyone else?
Bill, thank you for chairing. Appreciate it.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Johnson?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 We are adjourned at 6:28 p.m.